All righty. Good evening, afternoon, or morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Terrell Williams, and I serve as the Associate Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Office of Admissions at MIT Sloan. We want to thank you all for joining us for another installment of our Identity and Inclusion series. At this event, we will focus on those who identify as LGBTQ+. I'm excited about this opportunity to host tonight's event. I am joined by one of my colleagues, Rachel, who will be monitoring our Q&A chat feature. So we'll flag some questions for the panelists to answer live. We are joined by a group of dynamic panelists, and I will have them introduce themselves shortly. But before we begin, I want to go over some house rules for tonight. So we want to start off with our land acknowledgement statement. So MIT acknowledges Indigenous peoples as the traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between them and their traditional territories. The land on which we sit is the traditional unceded territory of the Wampanoag Nation. We acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced occupation of their territory, and we honor and respect the many diverse Indigenous people connected from time immemorial to this land on which we now gather. I firmly believe that through this panel discussion tonight, as well as many other recruiting activities that you select to participate in, you will see our commitment to creating a more diverse and inclusive environment. I also want to share our mission statement for MIT Sloan. So the mission of MIT Sloan is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and to generate ideas that advance the management practice. So as you hear from our panelists tonight, you will see that we have a lot of current students and alumni that align with our mission statement. We want to be able to share that with you as our prospective students. So I like to highlight our robust portfolio program. So although our panelists are more familiar with the MBA and LGO program, our community includes and supports students across this entire portfolio and the larger MIT ecosystem. So I want to transition now to our moderator for tonight. I'm going to introduce you to Priyanka. So you can please share a brief bio about yourself and introduce our panelists for this evening.
Hi, everyone. I'm Priyanka. My pronouns are she and her. My class year is 2024. I'm an MBA student, and I'm currently based in San Diego. I'm interning right now at Qualcomm as a strategy and partnerships intern. And before I came to Sloan, I was working in economic consulting for 5 years, and I did my undergrad at Wellesley College. And I'm really excited to be here and to speak with all of you today, and I'll let the panelists introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I don't know who goes first.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we can go in order of the slide.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Yu Huan, and I'm part of the LGO Class 22. I am currently working at Boeing as a manager for supply chain operations. I am relocating to Japan in September and will be there for a year. My goal is to be able to converse in Japanese by the end of the year. Nice chatting with y'all tonight.
Hi, y'all. So my name is Dennis. I'm a rising second year along with Priyanka. This summer, I worked in corporate strategy for Fidelity. And prior to Sloan, I worked as a teacher for 2 years, and I worked at an educational startup for about 3 years. So really excited to meet with you all today.
Awesome. My name is Gabriella, and I was a 2021 MBA. And currently, I am living in Portland, Maine, and I work in product and operations at a startup called Metaplane. And before Sloan, I was on HubSpot's product team. So yeah, the startup that I'm at right now is actually a bunch of my old coworkers from HubSpot. So it's been a lot of fun.
Hi, everyone. My name is Isaac, and I'm a class of 2020 MBA. I currently live in LA, and I work at BCG, where I'm a project leader. And before Sloan, my experience was primarily in ad tech. So can speak about what the transition was like, as well as life on the East Coast, which I try not to remember too much. And I think I'm the last one.
Great. I think we could jump in with questions. The first question I had for everybody is, what made you choose to attend Sloan?
I
And
I can go
lifting.
first.
Oh,
Great.
Or,
yeah.
okay, should I go?
Yeah, you go, Isaac.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I would say I wanted to attend Sloan primarily for two reasons. The first was wanting to just build a solid business foundation. I know that there are some schools that tend to favor the more softy, touchy feel of the MBA experience. And I thought that Sloan was a lot more well-rounded. As someone who had studied art history in college, I actually wanted to dive into the quantitative aspects of business. So that was definitely one of the things that I was looking for. And secondly, I really wanted to have a community that I could call home. I would say that when I was looking at MBA programs, I attended a number of events similar to this one. And ultimately, it was the Admitted Students Day at Sloan that really convinced me to come. I would say it was one of the highlights of my application process because once I was admitted, I could show up on campus and really get to know the students without the kind of veil of the application in front of me. And that's when I really got to see what it would be like to be part of the community. And it was actually the co-presidents of Sloan Pride at that time, the class of 2019, that I bonded with the most. And they really welcomed me with open arms. They introduced me to others that were current students that may have a similar interest as me. And so that really resonated. And I'm happy to say that I'm actually still best friends with some of them. I actually live in LA with one of the former co-presidents from 2019. So it's great to have built those friendships that still last from a very, what could have been transactional experience to one that really formed into a deep friendship.
I'll go next. For me, it mainly came down to three reasons. So I was looking into Sloan as well as a few other business schools. So I said my background was in startups. So my interest is really within entrepreneurship and in venture capital. And I really wanted a school that would help me hone in on those business foundations, just because in startups, you're able to gain a lot of breadth, but not necessarily a lot of depth in any particular skill. So for me, it was really wanting to hone in on my understanding of finance and accounting, just because I know that that would be helpful for me. And Sloan had three things that stood out for me. The first was really, and Isaac kind of hit on it, just the community. People are so like highly accomplished at this school, but so low ego, unlike some of the other schools that I got into. No shade, but shade. Second was really the culture. So everyone here is really trying to do something or very mission oriented in a way that's so fascinating. So, you know, I have my interests and I have classmates that are interested in healthcare and in education and in finance. So being able to talk with people and be amongst people that are just really pushing the edges of really accomplishing certain goals, it's really, really fascinating. And then last, obviously I had like a really like nice fellowship to come here, but again, like you're going to make money at the end of this wherever you choose to go. So really, while that was a great like icing on the cake, the core reasons were really the culture and the community of this place.
I'm happy to go next because I have sort of an echo of what both Dennis and Isaac said, but I really wanted, so I was in technology before Sloan and I went back into tech afterwards. And I wanted a school that had that focus where, you know, it felt like that wasn't like an addition or something that like a few people did, but that was like really, really integrated into how Sloan thinks about an MBA education. And the other thing that, you know, was a huge selling point to me about Sloan was that, you know, there are some business schools that are quite a bit bigger. And the idea of being a part of like a small, tight-knit community really appealed to me. I didn't go to a huge school for undergrad. I went to, you know, a school where I felt like at the end I knew a lot of people. And I just knew that I didn't want to be at a school where, you know, I would never get to meet everybody that was in my class. I wanted to feel like I was I was a part of a community and I knew the people at the school. So that was one of the big selling points to me. And, you know, Sloan was just like it ended up being like that. Like it was just big enough, and the community was so welcoming, and I'm really glad that, yeah, I made that choice.
Do not want to beat the dead horse over it. Sloan is a small community and really great, and everybody seems very sincere and open-minded. Another reason for me to apply to Sloan is, well, LGO. Boeing has a long history of sponsoring people to come to LGO program and for their education and come back to Boeing. I didn't know I wanted to come to MIT because it was such a good, reputable school. And I didn't have a big ambition, but I met so many great leaders coming out of Sloan, coming out of LGO program at Boeing. And that just made me want to join the community and learn from them and learn from everybody and learn from everybody I did when I was at Sloan. And I really had a lot of fun in the LGBTQ club events and met a lot of great people and who I still am friends with today. Whenever they visit Seattle, we go out, have a drink, or other fundraising events. So yeah, that's my story.
It's really great to hear all of your different perspectives. I think I'm picking up on a common theme of community in all of your responses. If I could maybe double click on that and ask you to maybe expand on what comes to mind when you think of community at Sloan, but specifically Sloan Pride, the club, that would be, I'm sure, valuable to everyone who's on the call as well.
I can start. I think one of the things that I noticed about getting to know the people in Sloan Pride was that I think it just felt like, I mean, it sounds really cheesy to say this, but it just feels like when we, you know, started getting to know each other, that we'd known each other for way longer. Like it just really felt like they were my people, and I made some of my best friends from Sloan Pride. And yeah, it just felt, yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It just felt really easy to get to know them. And I was so glad that, you know, there was such a robust community there.
Echoing that, the community is just really welcoming. I am part of the Veterans Club as well, and other different clubs, but the Sloan Pride Club has just been the most welcoming, the most fun club to join. It's I joined what's the getaway rent a cabin thing called, but I joined that every year despite during the COVID time, and everybody was just having so much fun and willing to be vulnerable, because as part of LGBTQ club, and we are very used to the topic of being vulnerable and open and sharing our feelings and accepting other people not understanding our differences. And I just felt so welcome in the Sloan Pride community. It's really hard to convey the feeling.
Yeah, I can go next. I would say that I'll speak about community while I was at Sloan, and also now that I've graduated. I would say when I was at Sloan, it was really the cornerstone of who was at the center of my friend group. I was best friends with my co-president of Sloan Pride, which was great because we could just have fun while planning a lot of events, while planning both events like this, where we're engaging with potential students, where we're engaging with alumni, but also more communal events where we're, for example, planning the C function, which we planned for the Pride group and had drag queens perform, whether it was going to Club Cafe to watch RuPaul's Drag Race. It really was just a nice home to have. And so I really valued that while I was at Sloan. And now that I've graduated, I would say that Sloan Pride folks are also who are probably one of the groups that I keep up with the most closely. I have As I mentioned, a number of friends that are here in LA, and that just happened to be fortuitous, but also friends that perhaps are as far as Israel, and we still make time and plans to see each other every year, every other year. So that still speaks to the commitment of how much we care for each other and how meaningful our time together was.
Again, not to beat a dead horse, I'll try to be a bit more specific in my experience. So I had come out like about a year prior to Sloan. So I was a little nervous just coming into Sloan, like what it was going to be like. But the Pride community has just been, as everyone has said, super welcoming. You have people that you can go out with. So I know I spent like a good amount of the core semester, even though I should have been studying really, but going out with friends and having fun along many different places along the East Coast and just traveling with them. So Sloan Pride has been like definitely a huge source of just community and empowerment. And so I've just really appreciated the memories I've been able to have with them, whether it's been through like traveling together, whether it's been through the Sloan Pride retreat, which was amazing. You should all go if you come to Sloan. Yeah, it's just been, everyone's really welcoming and supportive. So that's one thing I've really appreciated about this community.
That's really wonderful to hear from everyone. And for me too, I'm the incoming co-president of Sloan Pride. I feel so close to so many members within the club and made so many great friends from like my initial weeks. If you had to choose, if you could think back for the alums, and this will probably be an easier question for Dennis, if you had to pick maybe one or two events that really resonated with you that Sloan Pride puts on, whether that be the cultural function or social retreats, or maybe an Ask Me Anything forum or a ROMBA conference, what particular event maybe comes to mind that you felt was really meaningful for you while you were at Sloan?
I can start this off just immediately, just
Sure.
to know immediately what comes to mind. It was the Ask Me Anything event. So what happened is we had like about 4 Sloan Pride members and just the wider community at Sloan. We had about like, I think it was like something around like 60-ish people or something like that in a room, and they just asked questions about the LGBTQ community, being LGBTQ at Sloan, just wider experiences. And I think that was just really fascinating because even within the Pride members themselves, like just because you're LGBTQ does not mean you're similar or have a similar experience to somebody else. So being able to provide others with just a really great perspective and that experience was something that was super fascinating. I think I also became closer to a lot of the Pride members that were on that panel as a result of just being able to share my perspective and hearing their perspectives as well. That's just something that really resonates with me because it wasn't just Pride, it was also like just Pride within the wider community at Sloan and helping others understand what being LGBTQ means. So that for me was my most memorable event.
I would echo that. I forgot so many terminologies, like the Pride retreat, the Ask Me Anything, and I agree with the Ask Me Anything. That's the very open forum where other people who doesn't necessarily understand Pride or LGBTQ community have a chance to get to know us more, and also a chance for me to really realize there are so much different people from different backgrounds. There are allies, and there are people who definitely have very different experiences out either as well. I for one started as a very hardcore lesbian and only later realized, oh, I guess I am a bisexual. So and there are people who are originally hardcore what do you call it, dating the different sex gender. I excuse for my language, I came to the US when I was 17, so sometimes I forgot how to describe things. But the point is, there are people coming to understand themselves more through the experience of LGBTQ interactions and talking to the people that have similar experience or not, and share and being vulnerable, that end up knowing themselves more. So yeah, Ask Me Anything is very eye-opening for me.
I can go next. This is maybe not exactly an event that Sloan Pride put on, but it was one that we attended. So the fall of my first year, we went to the ROMBA Reaching Out MBA conference, and there was a contingent of Sloan Pride people who went. And if you think that Sloan Pride is fun, just wait till you get in a room with like the Pride groups of every like business school, because it was just so much fun to meet people from all over. And it was such a bonding experience to be there, to be going to sessions, to be, you know, learning and meeting people. And it was also the weekend of, it was in Atlanta, and it was the weekend of Atlanta Pride. And so we all went together, and it was awesome. It was, you know, it was pretty soon after the year started, and it was such a great way to build a lot of close relationships with people, and just to like set the tone for the rest of my MBA experience. So if you get the chance to go, I would highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would say that echo everything that you guys have already said. I'll say that the C function was really great in that it was kind of a showcase where we had the entire school just be present and participate in the kind of event that we put together, and that was really fun. I will also say that a non-Sloan event that I thought was really fun was a retreat that happens every year to Miami during during what is that holiday, like President's Day, sometime in February.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Boston is freezing, and everybody escapes to Miami, and there's like roughly 120 people from all over different schools, different MBA programs. And I will say, besides the fun and debauchery that happens with everyone, it's really nice to like see that your home base in this group of 120 people is still like the folks that you know from Sloan, that you know are remarkable and that you really come back to and want to hang out with day over day. So that was also really fun.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. It's cool to hear. I remember, Dennis, your Ask Me Anything was so powerful, and I found that a very memorable moment for me during my last year. But ROMBA is so much fun. I attended last year, and we're all going to Chicago again this year. And I'd say that we have very strong collaborations that we're working on across business schools. So we get to interact with other queer MBA clubs across business schools, which is really fun as well. The next question I have for you all is, well, I think that this has come up a little bit as well, but if anyone has anything to add to what Sloan's collaborative culture is like, and support that you've received from the collaborative culture since you've been at Sloan. I feel like it started for me even before I came to Sloan. I had a chat with Gabriella when I was applying, and I remember her saying that the culture at Sloan is about Sloanies helping other Sloanies, and I couldn't agree more, and how students go above and beyond. So I'd love to hear any stories that you might have that speak to the collaborative culture at Sloan.
I can also start this one off. So, and I'll come at this from a couple different angles. So Sloanie's helping Sloanies. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not one for like jingles. So I was like, oh, that's funny. Like coming in, that was what my impression was. I'm like, Sloanie's helping Sloanies. All righty. And then you actually go through it. So 2 examples. So first example was me and one of my classmates were interviewing for the same job. She had her interview about like a week prior to when I was having the interview. So after she had her interview, she was like, you know what? Here's what you got to do. She was like, XYZ, here are the questions they're going to ask. Here are the resources you need to use. And I'm like, yo, why are you telling me this? Like we're like going after the same job. And she was like, it doesn't matter. Like whether it's you or whether it's me, whether it's anybody else, I just rather it be a Sloanie than be somebody else. I thought that was just like super powerful, right? Like here's someone that's willing to really help you out. The other example I'll use is with one of the faculty members. So I had expressed to one of the faculty members at Sloan that I was interested in venture capital and that I was going to try to interview for in-semester internships. And she was just super, super helpful. So she connected me with like a number of different funds. And when I went through the interview process, it was pretty speedy because she was like, oh, well, people who were at those funds would be like, oh, I know that you're connected with so-and-so, so we're going to skip you past this. We're just going to go straight forward to what we need to know. I was just like, whoa, wow, this Sloanie's helping Sloanie's thing is actually very true. Like, let me not discount y'all. Like, this is some real stuff here. So I just think coming from that angle, like whether it be your classmates, whether it be faculty, it's definitely very true. When I think about collaborative culture and the Sloanie's helping Sloanie's thing, it's truly legit.
Definitely, that's an awesome story. If I'm happy for anyone else to share another story. Otherwise, I have just one more question left, and then we can turn it over to questions from the prospective students.
Yeah, I also just want to add that, like, I mean, I feel like Isaac also has mentioned this, but the Sloanies helping Sloanies doesn't end. I just earlier this afternoon was talking to somebody who was in my ocean in my year, and she is applying to a job at HubSpot, and so she wanted to just get my take on who she should talk to, and it was so nice catching up with her. And yeah, so it happens while you're at Sloan, and it happens like basically forever after.
To what extent are you engaged with the alumni network? I think some of you already touched on this too, but how involved are you with the Sloan Pride Network as well, whether you're a current student or since you graduated, in terms of the alums?
I can start. I think I kind of touched based on it. While I'm at Sloan, I feel like I make pretty good heart-to-heart conversations and connections with some of the Pride members from the club, and who I definitely keep on contact. Whenever they visit Seattle, they would give me a trip on the WhatsApp, like, hey, I'm here for this day. You want to join on a hike or grab a drink? And on that note, I'm definitely feeling still connected to the people that I felt connections with when I was at school. However, since I'm out of school for a year plus now, definitely there's a lot less frequency of communicating. So unless you have actual, you reside in the same city or you work in similar industry, then it's likely that you're not gonna have a lot of communications. But then, yeah, just so with everything else in life.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I will say that I mentioned it throughout. I'm still very close friends with a lot of Sloanies who were in Pride. They're some of my best friends, but even beyond Pride, I actually think that Sloan does a really good job at maintaining its alumni network active. I went to an event maybe a week and a half ago, which was here in LA, hosted for SoCal alumni, and there were that was MIT wide, and there were over 120 people that showed up. So it was really nice to build connections with not only with alumni from Sloan from across the years. I know that I met someone who went to school in the class of 2001 or so, and does e-commerce, which I'm interested in. So it's still nice to build connections with alumni in a very serendipitous manner through the alumni network.
Yeah, and I'll say that, like, I sort of like you were saying, I'm not as involved with like the formal side of the alumni network, but I am very involved with the informal side. And I have friends who, when I'm visiting their town or they're visiting my town, we'll let each other know. I've like run into other Sloan people at coffee shops randomly. Like, yeah, it's just nice. Nice to have it. Yeah, I like know that it's always there if I need it.
All right, great. Thanks everyone for those questions. I see several in the chat, and then we also received some questions in advance as well. So I'll try to kind of do a mix of both. So first question, how would you describe the overall climate and attitude towards the LGBTQ plus community, both at MIT and then more broadly in Cambridge?
I can speak to this because I was a little, like I said, a little nervous about coming to Sloan. In terms of MIT, everyone's really welcoming. Like, it's almost just like not something that like people even think about. So that's MIT wide. And then in terms of Cambridge itself is like very like also very chill as well. Also a very welcoming place as well. So it's not like you're going to feel welcomed and accepted just because there's so many people coming from all over the world. So that sheer amount of diversity just in and of itself just creates a space where people are like, you know, very open and just wanting to learn more about each other. So, I mean, overall, in terms of just like the climate and the attitude, it's a pretty safe and inclusive place.
Yeah, I would agree as well. I've been in the Boston area for 11 or so years now, and I think that it's very progressive, and there's a lot. I think there's a lot of young people there, and people again from all kinds of backgrounds who come from all over the world as well. And I think there's a lot of curiosity and an openness to learning.
Yeah, and I will say that, you know, when I would be, you know, just in conversation, bring up my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, nobody batted an eyelash. Like it was like a non-thing, which was really nice.
Yeah, I personally found it quite refreshing actually, because I grew up in the UAE, so it was a very different experience for me moving to the Boston area, realizing how open-minded everyone has been. Another question I had from that was previously asked was, what advice would you give to a young queer professional who is just beginning their journey in the workforce?
Well, first find a community so that you don't feel alone. I think that's very important for the psychological safety net, and also kind of be proud of who you are, and just really understand yourself, what you like, and what you can contribute to the team. Once you have that, like not feeling that you're different from people, but in a bad way, like just build that confidence, build that community, find that community so you can feel safe, and then start, well, slowly and surely educating people around you about the community if they might not have any knowledge in or experience from before. So be patient, be open-minded, and be confident. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I would say for me, it was really important to be authentic and to be myself in the workplace. Obviously, that's not an opportunity that everyone's afforded, but where possible, that's always worked out for me. And I would say in a similar vein, something that I try to seek out in a corporate environment is a mentor or mentors. Those can either be accessed through a formal pride group or through informal channels, whether it's people that you've been recommended to or done work with or are peripherally interested in the work they do. Some places do a better job than others in having a formal system. When I started work here at BCG, I was formally assigned a Pride mentor, which I found really helpful, and it's someone who has been very instrumental to my development and pulling me into cases and really advocating for me. So if it's possible for you to even be a trailblazer in how your organization manages and engages with its Pride community, then I would also, suggest that.
really great advice. Thank you both. Okay, I'm not sure if anybody here is or was a ROMBA fellow. I know a little bit about the process. Isaac and you, yeah. So I think that I believe Sloan automatically considers all applicants for the ROMBA Fellowship, and then they're given, I think, some funding through the school, and then you're also given like additional networking opportunities with other ROMBA fellows that happen around the time of the general ROMBA conference, but also in advance. And they act as ROMBA fellows act as an ambassador on campus. But I can share my contact information if anyone has follow-up questions, and put you in touch with this year's ROMBA fellow, if that's helpful. Let's see. There was another question that we had gotten from the chat, which was, can anyone speak to distinctive experiences traversing Sloan as a queer person of color? I think this is kind of related as well, maybe to the climate and attitude of the LGBTQ plus community, but also with the dimension of color as well.
I can speak to this. So like I said, I think one of the reasons why I was concerned with coming to Sloan was not only that I had recently come out, but I was coming from Atlanta, and Atlanta is like a pretty diverse place, and Boston is not quite as diverse. So that was something that went on in the back of my mind. I think one thing that is really important, and I think this has been echoed, is to really find communities and spaces in which you can engage with other queer people of color, whether it be at Sloan or outside of Sloan. So I know within Sloan Pride, there's a number of other queer POCs that I built relationships with, that I've traveled with, that helped me to get through the core. So those are those friends. But then there are also just groups outside of Sloan that are within the Boston area that put on different events that allow you to be able to connect with other queer POCs. And I think that's something that I've really gravitated to a lot when I've been in Boston. Happy to talk about more about like what those groups are and what they do. Don't want to like go down a rabbit hole, but I think that's just really important, just making sure that you're able to not only find the other POCs within Sloan, but also being able to find those groups outside, because I think that's what's really helped me to be able to navigate Sloan as a Black queer man. So that's just my personal take.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I think just having visibility and seeing so many advocates can be helpful too. And I think MIT just attracts a really wide variety of people at the school. Specifically, there's a question about how many members Sloan Pride tends to have on average, and maybe some of the alums can speak to their years and I could speak to our years. I could see it maybe varying year to year. I feel quite proud that there's good representation of women and men in our club, which isn't necessarily true across different business schools, and is something to think about as well. We have a WhatsApp group where there's, I think right now, at a point, I think it was maybe 50 to 60, but then different folks are like more or less involved. And yeah, again, it can kind of change year to year. But the people who are involved in the club are very active, and as I mentioned, I made some of my closest friends through Sloan Pride. So do those numbers sound similar to your years?
Yeah, I just checked my WhatsApp group for 2020, 21 and 22 group chat. There's 66 people, so about the same ballpark.
Cool.
I also just checked my WhatsApp, and yeah,
it's consistent. I will also say that there are people who choose to come to just the co-presidents and tell them that, look, they don't feel comfortable being out to anyone but the co-presidents, who share information about the club and events. or there are people who specifically say, look, I'm only out, but I want to be out within the club itself. And so we're very protective of people's identities as they're at different levels of being out with the community. The next question, let's see, what kind of contributions does MIT expect from its LGBTQ plus students? I wouldn't say that there's any kind of expectations, but maybe I'm misinterpreting this question as well.
I think that one of the, I don't know if this is even an expectation, but, you know, there were events for prospective students like this one that we could participate in, and it didn't even feel like an expectation because like it was so fun talking to prospective students. And, you know, the admissions office is really supportive of putting on those events and making sure that we can make those connections. So yeah, I saw this question in the Q&A. I was thinking about it and I was like, nothing felt like an expectation. Everything felt like they were things that I wanted to do anyway. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe if there's a smaller set of people who can answer questions that queer students have in particular, then there's a bit more pressure on us to step in, but I also personally enjoy it. Chase asks, how did you all approach your applications and letting your unique identity shine through your story, especially about your LGBTQ plus identity? Trying to think for myself. There's kind of limited options for this to come up. I think that one of the when you're selected for an interview, there's 2 additional questions that are asked, and one of them is all about like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I brought up stories from my workplace that were specific to my sexual identity, and I think at one moment it also came up during my interview. But it really probably depends on you and what your story is and how you want to weave that in. I'm just scanning through the other questions. I feel like we've covered everything, but Rachel and Terrell, if there's anything I'm missing, feel free to jump in.
I think you pretty much hit on everything. I can wrap us up if you feel like we don't have any questions.
Great. I mean, this is a good opportunity for anyone to add anything additional that they've already said, if you'd like to.
And in the meantime, I'll ask a question on behalf of like the admissions side, put my admissions hat on. So if you all wanted to just share a piece of advice for students that are going through the application process, maybe submitting round 1 or round 2, just share like, you know, some advice that you want to be able to give to a prospective student.
Well, be authentic and don't be afraid to seek help from the alumni. And whether it's you want to reach out to them to have them review your application or chat about how to make your story more you. My personal experience talking about Sloanie, help Sloanies, when I was applying for LGO, I reach out thinking that I'm not going to get a lot, maybe just some grammatic corrections for my resume. It turns out to be a 2-hour-long session of asking me a lot of soul-searching questions. Of why did you write about this line? Are you sure this is how you want to use the 300 words to describe this about you? It was just very selfless, and it truly makes me confirm that Sloan LGO is where I want to be. So yeah, reach out to alumni. Ask those questions. If you ask them to help you, they will definitely do their best.
I would say maybe, speaking of essays, I think do some self-reflection and really think about what attracts you to the school. Oftentimes, it's very easy to get lost in rankings and your external pressures as to why a school is attractive, but really thinking about what makes the school special, what is the ethos of the school. I think with Sloan and MIT, there's very much a spirit of entrepreneurship or getting your hands dirty that comes into everything. And even though I, went into consulting, I think it was very much imbued in my time at Sloan. And some of the, for example, IAP courses that I took in terms of exploring entrepreneurship. So think about how you resonate with the school's mission. And the other thing I'll say is, if I know this is not an opportunity afforded to all, but if you have the opportunity to engage with alumni, speak with folks, attend an in-person session, if you're in the area, those are things that really add clarity to why you belong in a place. I will say that during my time during the application cycle, I attended some schools that I thought I was enamored with, that I belonged there, only to find out that it was the complete opposite. So it really is an investment in how you think about your future and your network in the next 2 years of your life and beyond. So definitely worth it.
I think what's been said is completely spot on. On it, 3 pieces of advice I would say is, first, even before the application process, don't be intimidated, right? I was completely petrified just at the idea of applying to MIT, just because I wasn't really sure if I belonged. I was like, this is MIT. I'm Dennis. Is this gonna match up? Is this gonna actually pan out? So don't be intimidated, and recognize that you can be here, and this is a place where you can thrive. So that's the first thing I can say. The second thing, I think you and Isaac just both hit on it, right? Really be authentic, and really reflecting and really recognizing what superpowers do you have that you can bring to Sloan, right? And that could be because of your identity. That could be because of the different groups you've been involved with growing up. That could be because of your work experience. Right? What are those unique qualities that you have that is not necessarily something that somebody else could replicate, right? And then just lastly, putting that and translating that into the application, whether it be into your essays or your video submission, just really making sure to highlight those unique qualities that you have and how you'll be able to apply them during your time at Sloan.
I'll add something that comes after you submitted your application. Just take care of yourself. Working on your applications is hard work, and it's an emotional roller coaster, and just take some time to take care of yourself. I dealt with the wait in between submitting my application and finding out by watching a trashy TV show, but you can do whatever it takes to make sure that you are keeping on top of your mental health, because that's important too. And it's a big deal. And yeah, so that's what I would say.
I think everybody summed it up really well, and I'm not sure if I have anything new to add beyond really trying to put yourself in the shoes of what would it be like to be at Sloan. What specifically can you say that you would like to do while you're there, because that'll also help you once you ultimately get to campus. And even the 1-minute video that they ask you to put together, we literally did a version of that once we got to campus during orientation, where we introduced ourselves to our entire section. So yeah, try to be specific by talking to lots of people and trying to learn as much as you can about the school to see if it fits you.
Thank you all for sharing that. So I'll add a piece of advice too from the admission side. So I would just say to utilize the entire real estate of the application. A lot of times people leave stones unturned by not, answering questions to the best of their ability, but making sure that you're utilizing the entire real estate of the application. If it's an optional short answer question, if there's an opportunity for you to be able to dive deep into maybe some grades that may have happened when you went undergrad, maybe some situation you want to be able to share with us, just utilize that space for us to be able to have full context of your applications. Because a lot of times people leave things out, and we're in committee meetings asking questions that, potentially can lead to somebody being waitlisted or unfortunately being rejected. So making sure that you have all of those things outlined within the application. So I'm going to reshare my screen, and I want to thank the panel again for participating tonight. But we have some application deadlines coming up for you all. So For those of you that are interested in pursuing the MBA, the application is now live. You can see our corresponding deadlines here for all of our programs. And then once you submit your application, like Gabriella said, take care of yourself. We are here as a resource as well. So after you submit your application, if there's any changes you want to share with us in terms of getting a letter of support or maybe some updated test scores, you can definitely share that information with us and we will add it to your record for review. So we do have some upcoming identity inclusion events as well. So tonight we did our LGBTQ plus current student alumni panel, but in September we'll restart after the semester begins with our Black and African American alumni and current student panel. So we look forward to seeing some of your faces at that event as well. But we'll have more throughout the semester or throughout the September before our round 1 deadline. And if you want to learn more about the Pride community here at Sloan, you can feel free to visit our diversity and inclusion website, but also the Sloan Pride website to be able to connect with them offline about their particular experiences of being able to have a peer-to-peer relationship as you're going through the application process. We want to thank you all again for being here tonight. So thank you again to the panelists. Thank you to Priyanka for moderating. And we look forward to engaging with you all throughout the application process. Hope you have a great and restful night. Take care.